Okay, so good morning and welcome to Unity of Chautauqua on this, the first day of November. I'm just so blessed to have everyone with us and also blessed to know that there are all these people that are joining us later. They are joining us on our YouTube channel. So blessings, whichever way you connect with us is special. And we're going to begin by our song, our welcome song.
We come together in this moment. We bind our hearts and minds, for we all form a tapestry woven from one life, one creation, undivided, all unique expressions of God. We come together now in one accord. Let's do that again. Join me. We come together in this moment. We bind our hearts and minds, for we all form a tapestry woven from one life, one creation, undivided, all unique expressions of God. We come together now in one accord.
Thank you, Janine. And so I want to welcome you and just a couple announcements that if you are joining us because somebody sent you an email and you want to get your own emails, you can go to unitychq.org. And to learn more about Unity, you can go to unity.org. We are recording this, and later today we will download it, and then I'll send an email out with the notes for today. I also just wanted to remind you that we have a class, a discussion group, actually, that meets on this Wednesday night at 6:30. And all you have to do is take your email today, the way that you joined, and use exactly the same information, and you will connect to us. And so we will take what we're doing. And what we're doing once a month, the first Sundays of every month, and then the following Wednesday of that Sunday, is we're working with a book called Eye of the Storm. And so this seems so appropriate for me. I've been struggling with all the kinds of ways that we felt polarized lately, our country, and embracing conflict is the subtitle, Creating Peace. And so that is our journey. So welcome, and I hope you will join our journey. So now we're going to go back, and I'm going to tell you a little before Janine sings this song and we start our my Sunday sharing. And that is, this song is woven since the year 2000, I think into my life and out. And whenever there's been this time, it's called I Light a Candle. And if you haven't heard it before, just get prepared. You might want to bring out a tissue because when Janine and I talked about it a month ago, I think it just resonated about what we're looking at, what's coming up for us as a country, the things that we are embracing, the love that we're embracing. So Janine, I'm going to turn it over to you to sing us in.
Okay, I was telling Barbara a couple times I was practicing this and I couldn't make it through. So anything goes. Light a candle in your memory, though I don't know who you are. When I think about your family, I will wish upon a star. And I pray that they'll find peace someday. I pray they'll make it through. I'll light a candle in your memory to honor you. I'll light a candle for America. May we feel a peace inside. We'll hold each other closer and wipe the tears we've cried. And I pray we'll bond together. I pray that we'll pull through. I'll light a candle for America, for me and you. We will light the world with our love. Sing that with me. We will light the world with our love. I'll light a candle for humanity, for the good that's yet to come. As we overlook our differences and join now as one, I pray we'll come out stronger in this world I'm dreaming of. I'll light a candle for humanity, to be a world living in love. You can join on this with me if you'd like. We will light the world with our love. I know that we can light. We will light the world with our love. Every day in every way, light. We will light the world with our love. I know that we can, I know that we will light. We will light the world with our love, with our love. I'll light a candle for humanity, for the good that's yet to come. As we overlook our differences and join now as one, I pray we'll come out stronger in this world I'm dreaming of. I'll light a candle for humanity, to be a world in love. I'll light a candle. I'll light a candle. I'll light a candle.
And so I hold this candle, and this Sunday, as we approach probably a monumental vote, a thing that's going to create some anxiety, that we hold this consciousness of this lighted candle. And this candle, as Janine sang, is not only for what's happening this Tuesday, but it's in memory of all the people whose lives had made major changes, to hold the memory of those we've lost, the memory of not only those that have because of COVID, but also because of violence, whether you are a Black person, a person of color, or if you are a police officer that has been attacked. We hold that consciousness. And for America, and knowing that something is growing and creating and expanding our awareness, that out of this very difficult time is the opportunity for amazing transformations. So here's our candle. I'm going to put it at the base of my picture of Jesus. And so when we picked this date, I was just really deeply moved that we could do this at a time when we could hold a place for our anxiety and look at transforming it. Like the eye of the storm, the idea in the book is, can we believe in this possibility that we can live as nothing and no one is against us? And because right now, a lot of, I don't know about you, but I felt at times over the last 4 years, and even before that at times, that there were things working against the good of our country. Working again, not as much me personally, but overall for the direction we were going. And this has been, the way I look at it is that when I have an anxiety, this means that I am at the very edge of my ability to break through. Like there's some new skill that I need to develop to move through that anxiety and allow it to be a place, as Janine sang, a place of love. So we were talking, Janine and I, this week, and she just pointed out that in our country, we kind of put people in boxes. And I just love that analogy. She said, you know, there's like the red box, the blue box, and a whole bunch. There's the environmentalist box, right? And I was thinking, now, if I want to be this compassionate person who doesn't create an enemy, that says there's no one and nothing against us, I have to understand this other, because I'm in the environmentalist box. I've been there 40 some years and very committed to it. And so there's another box that I can create, right? And it's the corporate greed box. Fair to say. And there may be some of that in that box. But then I started saying, what would be the voice in the corporate? What might I not understand? What are some of the boxes that I've created in my life about some other, quote, others? And the minute we say somebody is an other, what happens? We can attribute all sorts of motivations to them because we don't understand their box. They've got a box. And so I thought, well, let me see, I'm a corporate person. Let's say it would be my hardest one to deal with, might be somebody that is running a coal company. And I'm thinking coal is just going against the pollution from it, against everything I hold sacred. But wonder if I were this coal executive or somebody working there and say, you know what, environmentalist box, you don't care a bit about my family. You're so interested in the air, but you forget I've got children to feed. And so that has been this 4-year journey for me, is that this whole thing of the anxiety I felt, it's been an opportunity to say, wow, what don't I understand? What new understanding. And so I've been studying different boxes, people's different boxes, and become curious. And that's what we're going to talk about some today, like understanding what Jesus had a formula for doing this idea, because we often make the other box the what? Enemy. This is our enemy. And the chapter in Eye of the Storm this week is called Enemy Mine, meaning I'm creating this enemy. It's the third chapter if you're following along and reading with us. And so what is the valuable information that takes me to the edge of my ability to be compassionate and loving? And can I step over that edge into a new understanding? And let me just say that it's okay. I've been really easy with myself because I get anxious, I get upset, when environmental rules, and that's just one of the areas that I get upset about. I've got a few. And I have to work through the feelings because all of us have a limbic system that the first thing we jump to is when we hear some other value. So instead of politics, let's call it a different value, because politics is just, it doesn't really define what's underneath. But someone has a different value than I do. I'm anxious about it. And then can I move into a place where because I can understand a deeper motivation rather than the surface enemy. And so I wanted to share a story with you about what happens when we don't do that. When we don't look under the surface and we blindly assign somebody the enemy. And this is a story from a long time ago. It's when Leonardo da Vinci was painting the Last Supper. And it says that the people in Milan came to see him and watch the painting come to life. So put yourself in that time. Imagine being that time in Milan with the master and all the people around him watching every day to see what he would do. So shortly before that time, Da Vinci had a violent disagreement with another painter, a man he really resented. So for his own amusement, now just picture that and look at some of the ways right now we're making fun of people that are different from us. So for his own amusement, as well as the amusement of his audience, he decided to get even with his adversary by painting his face on the body of Judas. Of course, all the townspeople who knew both men recognized the public slap on the face of his adversary, and Leonardo was very pleased with his little jokes for several weeks, until it came time for him to paint the face of Jesus. Suddenly, Da Vinci found himself blocked. For a week, then a month, he tried, but whenever he did, he just couldn't paint the face that suited Jesus. Finally, after fretting about it for quite a while, and having to face the constant concern of his admirers, he had an awakening. I love that word, awakening. He realized he could create the perfect face of, couldn't create the perfect face of Jesus as long as he held resentment for a man he had painted as Judas. Very quickly, he painted over the face of his adversary, and immediately he was able to paint the sweet face of Jesus, the face that is now the most famous figure of the Last Supper. So I thought about this story and I thought, well, you know, this is a long time ago, but how much it relates to today, and how when we paint over somebody with a face of our adversary, in other words, you know, this person is a greedy industrialist, or whatever it is that we have a tendency to do out of fear. What it does is it stops a solution that would help us all, both the people that we've painted the face on as the adversary and ourselves. We get stuck. And so, you know, Jesus was so bold about saying, you got to give this up. As long as you hold an enemy, you've stopped your good. You may not have stopped theirs, even though you might have desired that, but you've stopped your good. And in some way, you've stopped all the good of humanity. And we've watched our country do a lot of that. But at the same time, what I've noticed over the last 4 years, and even before that, and especially at Chautauqua, if you go and listen to the lectures and you listen to the wonderful things people are doing, there is healing taking place at all levels that is undoing the boxes. And so I want to share some of that with you. So first, I'd like to talk a little about some of the things that Jesus said about dismantling the enemy. And now, if you were traditionally raised, you were taught the enemy was what? The devil. But if you really look at what he says, it was constantly pointing back to how you felt inside about those that you felt were against you. So it wasn't somebody out here, which we'd like to project all of our, that's the problem. And we push forward, it's that immigrant, that's the problem, that's causing me this distress. Jesus kept saying, nope, no, point inside. And so what are some of the things that we can tell that we're creating an enemy? Well, first, let me say, the one I've learned the most is to watch my body. When I'm tensing, there's something in me that is now pushing against something. And so I watch that when I'm going to sleep, when I'm encountering somebody that I have a disagreement with. I'm watching how my body, and I'm relaxing it to see if I can open my heart. And how do I know I'm not opening my heart? Well, I'm needing to be right. I'm thinking they're wrong. I'm wanting to control the situation, and I'm resisting something or avoiding them. This got really pointed out to me last year. I had just come back from the mountains, just like I did about almost 2 weeks ago now. And I walked my dog, and we walk and we meet this couple, this elderly couple, which, by the way, I'm almost as elderly as they are, but they're a little older than me. And she said, well, how did you like the mountains? And I said, well, I was really disappointed. No leaves. We're in shorts. Boy, 40 years ago when we started going to the mountains, we had gloves and hats, and it was cold. And that has not happened for the last 10 years. And she said to me, and I didn't think about it that deeply, what I was saying to her, that I was talking about what? Global climate change. But she doesn't believe in that. And I didn't think about it particularly. And she said, well, it's just changes in weather. They're just normal. And she said, this will pass and it'll get cold again. And I went, okay, but the long-term picture I see is that it's going very fast in the warmer direction. Because she said, we've always had these variations. And I said, but never as fast and as quick in one direction. And she looked at me and said, Well, if you believed in Jesus Christ as your savior, it won't matter if the world ends, you'll go to heaven. Breathe. Okay, I felt pushing back. I could feel my whole self saying, how can I make sure I walk in a direction I will never see this lady again? There we are. I'm in that making her the enemy. And then she goes out, and I said, well, you know what? I'm very concerned about my grandchildren. I probably won't see the worst of it in my lifetime, but I'm concerned. And she said, well, are they saved by the blood of Jesus? And I'm just looking at her, and she said, then you don't need to worry about them either. They'll go to heaven, no matter what happens on earth. Okay. Now, I would like to say that I moved to the center of the storm, what we've talked about in previous weeks. There's a storm rustling about it, and I'm in the center, feeling this great love. And no. In fact, I took it and I mumbled. I like mumbling, and my poor husband had to listen to it and went, mumble, mumble. Can you believe that not only did she not think the environment was important, but who cares if the world ends? But she had this dogma of the version of Christianity that I most find irritating. And so I had to work on it. And let me just give you permission. We have to work on these things. And how do we work on it? I had to move from her being wrong and a problem in the world to what am I being called to understand about myself? This is my edge of understanding. And I went into that edge and said, what are you afraid of? Why does she make you fearful? Because she's just a person. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've really so become frightened about where our environment is going, that anybody that says anything contrary, that isn't all aboard and supporting what I believe, to me is causing more trouble. So I had to see that my fear was not about her. It was about what I'm holding. And then I had to realize, wait a second, and this doesn't help the environment having this. Because if I start making these enemies out there, these polluters out there, these politicians out there that are deregulating, I won't go and do what I need to do because I'll become discouraged. And it was just like Leonardo da Vinci. It got in his way. And we right now really can't afford those things to get. So we have to be able to process what's going on, look at our fear, understand it's our primitive brain, and then say, what's the higher consciousness I need to move into? One, I can't control someone else. But what can I do? I can care, and I can take the grieving, the upset, and I can channel it to change things. And so when I did that, she is no longer my box. She's no longer in the hurting the world box. And I've now seen her, now that my dog Sandra D's her knee's been replaced, I see her all the time. And I have none of those feelings. I was avoiding her last year, but now I could just see her, appreciate her. And here's just a little PS on that story. She and I spoke a little bit, and I'm in an organization that her daughter-in-law's in. And I met her son at a party last Christmas. And I said, I know your mom. But I just noticed he doesn't look at all like his mom. I mean, at all. He looks Arabic, very dark. You would think like Jesus looked, these big brown eyes and dark skin and dark hair, and he's just radiant with love. And I said, I'm curious, you don't have to tell me, but your parents are blonde. I mean, they're silver now, but they look very fair and blonde. He said, she adopted me from Egypt. And she adopted my brother from Africa, from Southern Africa. And she had 2 of her own children. And I went, oh, there I am. I put her in a box. And she is, like all of us, a diamond. And she's multifaceted. And some of those facets, there's an understanding. When we label somebody so simply, we don't look at the details. And here was a woman. My husband laughed at when I told him this story. I said, I just realized she'd done this great thing. And she said, you know, she was trying to save their souls, right? And I said, well, maybe. However, she raised 2 boys. She fed them, she clothed them. One of them has just become a lawyer. She did all these wonderful things. And yes, her motivation might be not what mine was, but wow. And so it's like, can we break these boxes and heal and stop thinking, what face are we painting on the enemy? So we're all going to have opportunities, and I know we've had it in the last few years, to look at enemies. And it's not necessarily another person with another value. It can be your body, right? You can feel like your enemy. Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, many of you have probably heard her story lots and lots of times, but just to remind you that what she did was she blessed her body. When it was at its sickest, when she was told she only had a few months, she kept blessing it and apologizing to it. So we expand our idea of anywhere we're pushing against or resisting or being upset, we allow the upset, we look at it, we know that is only human being upset. And then we work and say, I'm in the storm right now, can I move to the eye where there's peace? What do I have to do personally? And for each of us, it's going to be different what that is. Here's Jesus's formula for moving to the eye of the storm. And the more I study Jesus, the more, if you look at it, how radical his message is, how it will take me my lifetime. And at the end of it, I'll still say, maybe I've done a little of his message. So he says in Matthew 5:44, how can we relate differently to the enemy? Here's what the formula is. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good for them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Now, sometimes we throw that away because we think, well, let me see, that means I'm going to be a doormat. Or what is it called? I'm trying to see, there's a name, English name for it. It's gone out of my mind. I've been reading English books lately, and they have milsop. A milsop they use in the English. And it just cracks me up, that name. Instead of a doormat, I love milsop. You're a milsop. That's not what it is at all. We're talking about coming from such an authentic place in love for our enemies. And it doesn't mean we like them. It doesn't mean that we make them our best friends. It doesn't mean that we agree with them and that we don't lovingly suggest them considering a different idea. But here's the trick about it. To love your enemies, you have to first listen to them. Ow. And I can be thinking that, golly, could I listen to being saved by the blood of Jesus very long? Enough to be respectful. Enough to be honoring that is her belief that gives her comfort. And that I don't need, again, to change it. But I need to listen with great love and not listen a long time. I remember when I was dealing, my mom was very difficult and was sure that she knew how I should live. And she said, I went to a therapist because it was just getting to me. And I definitely put her in the enemy box. Like, oh, I can't talk to her. And this therapist said to me, come with great love. Tell her how much you love her, but keep the time really short. Like, keep it short and sweet and hug her. And I got to this place with my mom, and it was a wonderful place. And if she went down the negative, blah, 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 I'd say, you know, I want to be with you. I want to say something positive, and I want you to join me with this. And if you don't, I'm not going to stay, because it's just not what I want to do. And it shifted our whole relationship. It's not that you're a doormat. It's that you just love so much a person, the quote enemy that you've labeled as an enemy, that you can be honest with them with such compassion that you invite them into the love. Otherwise, what will happen is that we will create a story of the other, which we've done. And guess what you can do when somebody's the other? See, other people you can mistreat. You can call them names. You can exclude them from the wealth of the world, prevent them from joining the abundance of our world. You can do all sorts of things with this, quote, bad othering that we do. And so this is just like of the eye of the storm. Moving into the eye is realizing it's not good for me and it's not good for them to do that. And I can't control if they stay in the storm and are miserable and unhappy and blame people and push, I can be this presence that maybe, just maybe, when I encounter them, and I believe this change is going to happen one-on-one. I don't, we keep thinking, well, I'll just protest. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Anger points out what is, but at some point, there's got to be listening, understanding, respect, and such great love that we can shift points of view by that person feeling so heard. And how about this other one about loving your enemy? What about blessing people that curse you? And this is what he says in Eye of the Storm. When we bless something, we dismantle the belief that anything can come between us and our good. There's so much power in that. We dismantle the idea when we bless something rather than seeing it against us. It shifts, and possibilities now, a support of a loving universe, come to call for us, just like it did for Da Vinci. It comes to call this inspiration when we're no longer caught in this circle of wanting revenge or to get back at somebody who's unfairly many times said things. And sometimes people said things to me have a grain of truth, and there's a learning edge for me. So this curiosity, this listening coming first, and then turning it to a blessing. Then his other thing is, whoa, this one's hard. Do good to those that hate you. Okay. Hate's a pretty strong word. I probably would look at somebody, and I once had somebody in my congregation that, quote, hated me. And I couldn't find out why. And I asked them, and and just know that there were 100 people that felt different, that this was an unusual person. There were people that disagreed and got angry at me and things, and we worked stuff out or try to find out. But this person literally hated me. And I spent a lot of time in prayer. And I don't know if it shifted. She couldn't tell me why. But every time I saw her, and I've been back to the church a few times to do memorials for people that have passed and things like that, and she's mad, and I just keep opening my heart. It's like she's my spiritual practice. The people in my congregation that were angry at me for something or that accused me of something, they were my practice. There were lots of these people that were, like Jesus says, it's great that people love you, but what good is that? What about loving the people that don't love you? It's your leading edge. It was my leading. Could I keep my heart open? Could I keep it? Not always, and it took a while, but it's the eye of the storm. It's where we go. So I want to share a little, there's something called StoryCorps. And StoryCorps does all these beautiful, brings people together. Now it does it over Zoom, but it did it before. And it puts little dialogues, 3-minute dialogues of people with different ideas, or sometimes just supporting each other and families. And it records these deeply thoughtful conversations. And then it puts them in the Library of Congress. Right now, 400,000 StoryCorps dialogues are at the Library of Congress so that children can hear it, their grandchildren can listen to grandparents talking to children. The interviews are so beautiful, and I get the podcast. Well, there was one that really relates to what's going on with our politics that touched me deeply this week that I listened to it. And they have this project right now going one small step. And I love that idea. One small step. It's not that we're going to change the world. It's going to be that we take one small step to someone that maybe we would have pushed out of our lives. And in their core issue here, and I just love it, is on their website it says, and I'm going to put this in the notes, by the way, so if you're looking to go click and find it, they call it listen is the first word. Second is honor. And the third is serve. Don't you love that? Listen, honor, and serve. And so let me just share this screen. I'm going to play it. It's 3 minutes long. And it's not a video, it's only audio, but they have a picture of this young man and woman.
Here is a story from two people who attended the same rally, but for very different reasons. It was days after the 2016 election when Joseph Wideneck showed up at an anti-Trump protest in Austin with pro-Trump signs and a Make America Great Again hat. Amina Amdeen, a Muslim student at the University of Texas, was one of the marchers. They came to StoryCorps and remembered a moment that day that unexpectedly brought them together.
I noticed you with the hat. And I noticed that you were surrounded by some people, and I noticed that they were being kind of threatening.
I heard a click of a lighter right behind my ear, and there were about 3 people trying to light my shirt on fire with lighters.
And then somebody snatched your hat off your head, and that's the point where something kind of snapped inside me, because I wear a Muslim hijab, and I've been in situations where people have tried to snatch it off my head.
Wow.
And I rushed towards you, and I just started screaming, "Leave him alone, give me that back."
I don't think we could be any further apart as people, and yet it was just kind of like this comment, "That's not okay" moment. You are genuinely the only Muslim person I know. It's not that I've actively avoided, it's just, I've just never been in the position where I can interact for an extended period of time. So I guess my views on the Muslim community have been influenced by a lot of the news articles and things of that nature.
I feel like a lot of times in the media, you don't see the normal Muslim, the one that listens to classic rock like I do. You don't meet that Muslim.
Can you tell me about where you grew up? What was that part of your life like?
So I was born in Baghdad, in Iraq. I moved to the U.S. when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
Being a Muslim girl, I stood out in almost every single way that you can in middle school, the worst time to stand out. What about you? How was it like when you grew up?
I was homeschooled, so it was a vastly different experience socially. I didn't have, I guess, as many friends as most people would. I only went to public school 1 year of my life, and I got 3 fights, and I lost all of them. I've actually lost a lot of friends because of this election, because of my political stance. So I hope that I can be the reason that someone decides to talk to someone as opposed to just cutting them out of their life or blocking them on Twitter,
I'd like for this to encourage other people to engage in more conversations with people that you don't agree with.
That's what it's all about. I'm so glad I wasn't the only one who felt like that.
Oh, so there's hundreds of stories like that on storycorps.org. And finally, Jesus tells us to pray. Pray for those, no matter how they react to us, to hold that. And to me, that means for us to go into the consciousness, which we've been saying, the eye of the storm, that we are, instead of in the way of God, we are the way of God. So can we move out of that and hold a place for ourselves and others where we want to deepen, like you saw that conversation, So my final thing is I want to read you something. Marshall Rosenberg wrote a great book called Nonviolent Communication. And we took this course in ministerial school. He spoke to us. He is no longer with us. But there was a dialogue in here that just blew me away. And I've probably read it 5 times at different things in my life because it just means so much to me. And he said that when you're with someone else who feels against you, that you need to put on giraffe ears. Now, what does that mean, giraffe ears? And he said, it's because giraffes have the biggest heart of any mammal. And Janine said that earlier when we were talking. She said, when I can move into my heart and listen, it shifts and we make connection. So we're going to put on our giraffe ears, and I want to read to you a dialogue from, and remember, he is Jewish. Rosenberg is Jewish, and this will set the pace. He says, I was presenting nonviolent communication in a mosque in a refugee camp in Bethlehem to about 170 Palestinian Muslim men. Attitudes towards America at the time were not favorable. As I was speaking, I suddenly noticed a wave of muffled commotion fluttering through the audience. They're whispering that you're an American, my translator alerted me. Just as a gentleman in the audience leapt to his feet, facing me squarely, he hollered at the top of his lungs, murderer. Immediately, a dozen other voices joined him in a chorus, assassin, child killer, murderer. Fortunately, I had been able to focus my attention on what the man was feeling and needing. In this case, I had some clues. On the way to the refugee camp, I had seen several empty tear gas canisters that had shot into the camp the night before. Clearly marked on each canister were the words, made in the USA. I knew that the refugees harbored a lot of anger towards the US for supplying tear gas and other weapons to Israel. Now remember, he's Jewish with such a big heart. I addressed the man who called me a murderer. I said, are you angry because you would like my government to use its resources differently? I didn't know whether my guess was correct, but what is critical is my sincere effort to connect with his feelings and needs. He says, damn right I'm angry. You think we need tear gas? We need sewers. Not your tear gas. We need housing. We need to have our own country. And I said, so you are furious and would appreciate some support in improving your living conditions and gaining political independence. You see how he didn't defend himself at all? He just kept honoring what this person needed, what they were feeling. He said, do you know what it's like to live here for 27 years, the way I and my family, children and all? Have you got the faintest idea what it's been like for us? I said, sounds like you're feeling very desperate. And you're wondering whether I or anyone else can really understand what it's like to be living under these conditions. Am I hearing you right? He said, you want to understand? Tell me, do you have children? Do they go to school? Do they have playgrounds? My son is sick. He plays in open sewage. His classroom has no books. Have you ever seen a school that has no books? I said, I hear how painful it is for you to raise your children here. You'd like me to know what you want and what all parents want for their children: a good education, opportunity to play and grow in a healthy environment. He said, that's right. The basics, human rights. Isn't that what you Americans call it? Why don't more of you come here and see what kind of human rights you're bringing here? And I said, you'd like more Americans to be aware of the enormity of the suffering here and to look more deeply at the consequences of our political actions. And then he goes on to write, our dialogue continued with him expressing his pain for nearly 20 more minutes. And I listened for the feeling and need behind each statement. I didn't agree or disagree. I received his words, not his attacks, but as gifts from a fellow human willing to share his soul and deep vulnerabilities with me. Once the gentleman felt understood, he was able to hear me as I explained my purpose for being at the camp. An hour later, the same man who'd called me a murderer had invited me to his home for a Ramadan dinner. Wow, he taught this. He taught us to us ministers. And I don't know if he felt inside of him attacked. Maybe he did, but maybe he's so practiced in listening, even when we feel attacked. And it could be we feel attacked by the newspaper, by articles. Can we look under those to the understanding, to the more dimensional part of our humanity? So I'll leave you with this from, and I may not pronounce this right, the person. It's from a book called I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And he says this: when you know beyond all doubting that the same life flows through all that is, and you are that life, you will love all naturally and spontaneously. When you realize the depth and the fullness of yourself, you know that every living being and the entire universe are included in your affection. So let's end this with meditation.
I'll light a candle for America. May we feel her peace inside. We'll hold each other closer and wipe the tears we've cried. I pray we'll bond together. I pray that we'll pull through. I'll light a candle for America, for me and you. We will light the world with our love. We will light the world with our love.
So take a deep breath and know that as we are here together this day, that our very consciousness of joining the one breath, the one light, the one world, and that underneath all that appears to separate us is merely an invitation to listen, to honor, to serve this light. We light a candle, and this candle is a reminder that beyond our fears, our anxieties, as we approach this week, we hold that in that light, there is love. And so we just honor, and you may wish to put your hand on your heart space. And just know that there is that light in your heart that overrides all fear. That is the place of peace and acceptance, of listening, of embracing both ourselves and, quote, the other, becomes part of our humanity. And so the painting we're creating is the one of love. We will light the world with our love. We will light the world with our love in the silence. In the silence. My heart is a candle for lighting the world. And so it is. Amen and amen.
I'll light a candle for humanity, for the good that's yet to come. As we overlook our differences and join now as one, I pray we'll come out stronger in this world I'm dreaming of. I'll light a candle for humanity, to be a world living in love. I'll light a candle. I'll light a candle.
Oh, thank you, Janine. And so, and there we are. This is the time of our offering. And I just want to thank so many of you who have sent in gifts. If you wonder where that is, the gifts can be sent to the address on the bottom of your email. Kelly is our board president as well as our treasurer. And we so appreciate those because we didn't have the summer to collect at services. And so this has made all the difference. So an invitation now is that we are giving the gift of a light to the world. And so say this with me, feeling this light. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. Thank you, God.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. Sing with me. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
So would you join me now? And I've got our world here to bless with that light, with that candle that lives in our heart as we say our unity prayer of protection together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you, God. And so it is. Thank you for being part of our morning